Hey everybody, we wanted to tell you what it is like to travel to Dubai. We learned a lot of things and we want to walk you through some of the main categories so you know what to expect when you travel to Dubai.
The first impression I had was that it is over the top. As many people know, it is very luxurious, very beautiful, very clean, which I loved. It's probably like the cleanest country I've ever been to.
And in addition to it being clean, it's brand new. I think the country was established in the last, was it 50 or 70 years? And everything they built was specific to their taste, their likes. And so they brought in the best of the best from the international cuisine, from international expos, from international builders, architects, to build this beautiful city out of nowhere. So it's like walking into a brand new city with everything you really wanted. Honestly, it's hard to say it that way, but even if you go to like LA or New York, you're gonna encounter things that were not planned. You're gonna encounter places that are not pleasant. When we were in Dubai, for the large majority of the time, we were in this like Disneyland kind of experience.
I personally loved that it felt like I was going back to England at some points because there is a large expat community of both British people and Australian people actually, and maybe some New Zealanders as well. But the stores there were like British brands. There were so many British grocery stores, British kind of eateries, British brands, and it felt like you were in this like melting pot of like, here's the best food from Turkey, here's the best food from the United States, here's the best food from Canada, here's the best food from Asia, and like different places in Asia. And it was just like, we had Greek food one day that it was all like stuff flown in from Greece. And so it felt like you could travel the world almost just by being there, in terms of the food and in terms of the brands that are there.
We got to do so many fun things. We literally packed a trip of amazing plans. We went to some really beautiful hotels and got to experience the best hotels that Dubai had to offer. And everything that came with that kind of luxurious experience. There's a very apparent opulent perspective and experience that's available in Dubai, somewhat like you would see in like a Singapore or LA or even New York, where there's a lane where you have to have a lot of money to enter into that lane or you're not going to ever get to experience it. And so we got to taste of that for a minute, which was really special. And it was so new and different, like the flown in sand for the beaches that we're at, or the tiles for the swimming pools that we're at that were like hand painted tiles. There was a million of them, and all these things that were just like mind blowing. The gold cappuccinos, the insane architecture.
The shopping was incredible. Literally, you could find any brand that is, an international brand there. It is very expensive. If you compare it to other countries that you might travel to, it is probably one of the most expensive countries. The minimum wage there is very high in comparison to other countries. There is a lot of wealth there. Much of the wealth comes from the oil. And while we were there, we learned so many things about the kind of class system there. It seems that the people from the UAE, they set themselves kind of in a different class. And there's a working class, which is primarily comprised of Indian and Pakistani individuals, and some from different countries of Africa as well. Uber drivers are men. One thing I did appreciate about Dubai is that it does have Ubers, which was great. But one of the first encounters that we had was really interesting. And going to the UAE, you have to be aware of the history and the culture. So it is really a Muslim culture still at its core. Up until I think 2020, there were very strict rules about men and women being alone in the same room. And so there were actually laws that it was illegal to share the same room if you weren't married. And up until 2020, right? I don't know how much they were enforced, but that's what I hear. There are also rules against drinking and alcohol. So the alcohol consumption there is very small and it's very limited. Mostly you have to go to a nice hotel or a really nice restaurant. if you want to have some alcohol, because a lot of the local eateries and places, they won't sell it. You can't really get it at the store. It's very highly regulated. The other interesting thing is they don't eat pork, and so in the stores you'll find like sections where it says non-Muslim area, and it's pork because their religion, it says you don't eat pork. As a vegetarian, I have no problem with that. But I thought it was a very different approach. They're really trying to be more open towards tourists and international. So a lot of the building and the things that Dubai is trying to create is to facilitate income from tourism. And so that's why they're doing all these extravagant things, and you can tell they really want foreigners to feel at home there. Mm-hmm. They want you to feel like you want to come back. They want to feel like they've wowed you and impressed you and given you the best experience of your life. They're very, very nice people, by and large. But I would say one of the interesting things as a woman is that there is different treatment of women still. So one of the things that I realized from the start is, even with our Uber driver, Jeremy said hello, I said hello, but the driver only addressed him. And if I would ask him questions, he would address it back to Jeremy. And that's part of the way that they show respect. I don't know, I've heard of some of my friends traveling as single women there, and by and large they get by fine and there's no problems. But if you are with a man, the man will address the man back. I would say maybe 50% of the time. Or if he's coming to take an order, he addresses the man. So that I found really interesting. I definitely was aware of my clothes. I think this was one of the things I was most nervous about, is like what I was gonna wear, because I don't want to offend anyone. And I don't want to stand out and create a scene or anything like that. And I want to be viewed as polite and someone who is bringing, no disrespect to the culture that I'm interacting with. And so I, by and large, wore long skirts, long sleeve shirts. A lot of the women there were, fully covered, but at the same time, I did see a lot of women who didn't really abide by any of that, wearing shorts, wearing short sleeve shirts. And no one seemed to be bothering them or giving them a hard time about it necessarily that we saw.
Yeah, and we walk around the mall and you'd see, people that are fully covered head to toe with a very, very small little slit so that your eyes could be seen. Nothing else would be exposed. You wouldn't even see their shoes. And then there were normal American apparel, kind of people with spaghetti straps walking around and, almost in their swimming trunks, in the mall. And so I'm sure that's changed over the years, because I read a lot of articles about how, you could get arrested, or there was some type of persecution or criminal, stuff related to your wardrobe. But in the common areas, in the common spaces, in the cities, it seemed like it was like a normal, you can do whatever you want, pretty much. Even to the extent where we went to beach club at the Burj Al Arab, and this is the nicest beach club that exists in Dubai, from my understanding. And everybody's wearing bikinis and in their swimming suits, and they're swimming, and so they came in with their full head to toe covering, and then they're in their bathing suit, swimming. So I don't really understand that. There's so much that I don't know about how they go about their lives and what they do and what they're not allowed to do in terms of the Muslim culture. It's very new to me, so I can't speak to that, but I can speak to our experience. They changed the name on the hotel room for us. Allie booked it, and they changed it to Mr. Allie, so that it would be a guy checking in rather than a girl. And it just, we encountered daily things where she was being made to be invisible, and they only identified me. So that was very strange for me, because I do respect equally, men and women. I think that they need to be treated equally, and so for me, it was hard for me to process that my wife, the person I've chosen to spend all my time with, is ignored by a culture of people, and I'm only acknowledged. That was challenging. And the food. We actually did so many things. This was not really a food trip for us, but there are tremendous foods to eat in the Middle East and in UAE and in Dubai. We got to explore some Middle Eastern food on a couple occasions. During the expo, we ate a bunch of international food, but it's an international city. You can eat anything you want at any given time, anywhere. Truly, when I say that, like I even saw a tiny little like, Tim Hortons from Canada, which is like pre-made fake coffee. And I know you guys, there's some Canadians that'll hate me saying this, but it's like Quick Trip coffee where it's powdered coffee and then they make it and it's like $1. Well, there are those everywhere, and it's like that with every single thing. Like you could find Chili's there, you could find, Joel Robuchon's restaurants there, you could find, Gordon Ramsay's got restaurants there. You literally find anything you want, especially in the malls. The malls are filled with these amazing restaurants, especially Dubai Mall. And so we did a video on the dates because there are so many different kinds of dates there. So check that out right here. And we got to experience a lot of like hummus and different kinds of Mediterranean little snacks.
Yeah, I would say going back to like the women and how they were treated, another interesting thing is that the women were assigned a cart all to themselves on the metro. And so on the public transportation, there is a section which is for women and children only, which was really interesting because we weren't thinking of that. So we hopped on and this woman looked at me and she said, "He needs to go out of here." And we were like, "What? Huh?" And then she like showed us the sign.
We didn't know, it was just a normal entrance.
It doesn't say like, I mean, I guess it says it on the ground, it says it on the door, but you don't think of
pink
like,
on the floor,
let me read everything, all the decorations on this door, and then you realize it's like women and children cart. So do be aware of that. Technically there's a fine for men in there. We didn't have any problem. We just left and went to the next cart, walked into the next cart. It was no problem. I felt bad, but we learned. Didn't think to expect that. Another interesting thing, going back to the rules of the culture, homelessness and begging are considered illegal, which I find creates a very different vibe for the city and for the public transportation if you're comparing it to like transportation in the United States. I felt so safe on their public transportation. I didn't feel like gross when I was getting off. It was all just so clean and pristine and well managed, and it feels like the vibe of the people there is that they really respect it and they recognize that their actions, they want it to be respectful towards this public transportation system. So I really did love the degree of like overall respect for space, for cleanliness, for beauty, for taking care of the things that are yours and that you're using, and making sure you're leaving a positive impact.
Yeah, the train system, the public transit is what she's referring to. We didn't ride any buses. Was very easy to use, and they guide you, and it was very affordable. The Uber process is obviously more expensive, of course, but custom, and all the cars are very nice. So there's a high standard there. And the airport was nice. It was fine, easy, coming in and going out. So that was really easy. You can take a train from the airport. We decided to take an Uber from the airport just because, it's one more thing you got to learn when you arrive. Uber, you already know. So just that was easy. And then we took a train back, I believe, to the airport from our hotel, based on where you stay, of course, But first place that we stayed was by the Palm Island, which is just a little bit out of the downtown area. And then we kind of worked our way back towards the center of downtown Dubai. And so we stayed relatively close to the airport when we left.
If you're looking for like what are the areas to stay in Dubai, I would say look at the Palm, find something kind of around there, maybe attached to the mainland though, depending on how much you want to do that transit. And then something by the Burj Khalifa, because that's where the Dubai Mall is, that's where a lot of tours will leave from, that's where obviously the Burj Khalifa is. And so if you can kind of split your trip between those two areas, I feel like you get a really thorough experience of Dubai. A lot of people that I talked to through Instagram and other places really enjoyed taking a safari to like the sand dunes, and they'd have like a traditional meal out there, maybe ride camels, things like that. We chose not to do that mostly because I don't like the sand. if you watch a park that we visited in New Mexico, it's like a sand dune park. It's like really amazing, but you will remember that even though I'm from the beach, maybe that's why I am not a fan of sand. So going out into the desert where sand was going to be blowing everywhere and you were going to be essentially camping overnight, that wasn't my perfect idea of an adventure. But everyone is different, and if that's something that is fun to you, I heard a lot of positive things about it. So check that one out as well. Other than that, we pretty much stayed in Dubai. And again, we didn't really venture out into other areas, so the rules and the culture may be different, but Dubai feels like it really is made for tourists.
Yeah, and if you stay outside of the main downtown Dubai area, or even where we referenced, which is over by the Palm Islands, you're going to encounter the Muslim culture prayers. And so if you stay north of the downtown Dubai area, or even just to the side of it, over closer to the airport, you're going to hear bullhorns and prayers 5 times a day for about 12 minutes at a time. There's a break in between, and it'll be loud, and it'll be very different from what you've probably experienced in normal traditional Western culture. It's coming from the mosque, and it's someone praying out loud, and everybody else participates with that, if they're participating with the prayer. And sometimes it's multiple bullhorns at the same time. I'm talking about in the street, when you're in your apartment, when you're in your hotel, you can hear it anywhere. So based on where you stay, you have to be aware of that. If you're going to do phone calls, or you want more of a peaceful environment in terms of the noise level, don't put yourself in that kind of situation unless you're open to it. So it was a surprise to us, and we were doing calls and work calls and going about our day, and you kind of have to pause because you literally can't do anything for 12 minutes on a work call, because it's so loud and you don't understand it if you don't speak the language. So there's that.
They do speak Arabic mainly as the primary language, but English is also, wherever you go, people speak English. I would say pretty much everyone is bilingual, and that's like mandatory because it is, again, meant to be a place where tourists are really welcome and feel comfortable. And so everyone is pretty much bilingual. We literally had no problems. We felt like we were almost in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everyone we encountered spoke English. And if they didn't, the person next to them and people all around us did. So
right.
That was really no problem. We have heard going into it that there was more strict requirements in terms of filming and in terms of like maybe people not wanting to be filmed. We never experienced any issues there, but we were also like, again, trying to be aware and courteous of the
Mm-hmm.
culture there and not do anything that would make us,
right.
appear to be, not respectful of them. And so most of our filming we did on our iPhones.
Right.
Just for the sake of, trying to be courteous and polite, knowing this about the culture going in. So we didn't bring any of our, except for maybe once or twice. You brought, when we would go to do activities, that was different, like tourist activities,
Mm-hmm.
like going to see the penguins or skiing inside at the mall. Of course, it's expected that you're going to record that. But in the day-to-day kind of things that we were doing, we just used our iPhones, and nobody ever had an issue with that.
Yeah, and that was pretty easy, but we were also mindful. We weren't disrespectful in that regard. Money, I never got any cash out because it's absolutely not necessary unless you're going to ride taxis. We took Ubers and we took public transit with the train. I never took cash out at all the entire time we were there, and we just used our Apple Pay, and we used our credit card. So you literally don't have to worry about the conversion rate or anything like that. Not whatsoever. It was very nice to not worry about that. And what else? What else is there? I was really, really surprised getting into the customs line at the airport. Yeah. It sets you back if you've never seen anything like that before. You've got these, somewhat larger men behind as a customs agents wearing attire that you've never seen before, only in movies. If you've never been to the Middle East, full head coverings, all white. Most of them are all white, and then full white, all around. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I was surprised. I've been to almost, I don't know, let's say 50 countries at this point. I've got a list somewhere. And I've never seen anything like that before. So that was very new for me. And they have a retinal scan at the airport when you check in and through customs. And that's how they are able to register everybody. It's through retinal scans. Typically they have other procedures at other countries and other airports. But the reason why they have retinal scans is because most of the girls are in full covering, and the only thing that's exposed is their eyes. So they had to go with retinal scans to register somebody in. So you're going to look into something, they'll scan your eyes, and then you'll be checked in. So that was actually really easy, pleasantly easy. It's just intimidating, I think. At least I felt that way when I was checking in the airport.
Yeah, I was surprised. They pretty much didn't even ask any questions of us or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of the... Sorry, did you...
No, go ahead.
So in terms of the workforce and the kind of the local class, there is a very apparent local class system and the workforce system. They're two different groups of people, and they're treated way different. If you have a service industry person and they see a local person, they're preferred over even the tourist, in our opinion, and what we were experiencing. So if a local person comes up and you come up at the same time, they almost ignore you in some regard to see the local person, and they're treated like a celebrity. And I understand that to some extent, but it threw us off a few times, especially when the worker class came as a customer next to us. They're fighting or jousting for position, and they're cutting in line, and they're just trying to be noticed and trying to be seen. And so you could tell they were being like, I don't know another way to put it, but squashed in their identity somewhat because of the way they're treated or are mistreated. And so they were desperate for attention, versus us, we're like, I'm next in line. It's just a normal process. I'll stand in line, wait to be next. And I'm not like trying to get someone to notice me. I'm just acting normal because we've traveled a good bit.
Yeah, and I think for you, one of Jeremy's pet peeves is waiting in line and people cutting in line, and so that was maybe a challenge, because it's true. It felt like every other line we were in, there was someone trying to cut in front, either because they thought they were more important and more special and should be treated first, and should be served first, or because they felt like maybe they're never given the place that they deserve, and so they gotta fight for what they want and what they need, which is understandable on one hand, but also it kind of gets old after a little while, because you're like, do we all know the rules of a line, or we don't really agree with the rules of a line? Okay, we're all making up our own rules about lines. So yeah, I would say, like, by and large, for me, the prayer time was really shocking the first time that I heard it, because I've never been to a Muslim country where it was broadcast literally on the streets with bullhorns everywhere. My first thought was like, is there like a riot going on outside? Because I thought someone must be like walking with the streets, like yelling. And it sounds, in my, Western mindset, it sounds like something is seriously wrong with this person, like they're crying, or like they're being hurt. That's what it brings to mind, the sound of that prayer. And maybe, it is crying out to God, or crying, feeling like, wanting to pray to relieve suffering or something. But that's what it really sounds like. So it did throw me off. So just be aware, like, there's no catastrophe going on. There's not a riot. You don't need to look out for what's safe. It's just the prayer time.
Yeah, in terms of safe, everywhere we went, we felt really safe. No problem about that. And they do a really good job of managing that. And it's very clean, as Ellie pointed out. So would we go back? Yes. It's expensive though. So we spent probably 60% more than we thought we were going to spend there. And it was fine. We were prepared to do that, because why not? You're in Dubai. And we didn't buy any gold iPhone cases either. I mean, there's a lot of opulent things we didn't even wink at.
Yeah.
which is just crazy. But we did have a lot of fun, and we primarily spent most of our money on experiences.
So this was our experience in Dubai. We hope it was helpful for you. We hope you learned something.